Okay, hello everyone. Please welcome Shubhi Rajnish. She will be talking about driving digital transformation at scale. Madam, please continue.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, based on where you are. I am Shubhi Rajnish, and in today's session, I will be talking about driving digital transformation at scale. Before I begin the presentation, what I would like to say is that the views and opinions presented during these presentations are based on my personal experiences and thoughts, and they're not representative of any organization I have worked for in the past or currently connected with. So they are my individual views, which I will be sharing with you today, and I would love to obviously hear questions and perspectives from you all as we continue in this presentation. Let me just start by giving a little bit of an introduction and a context for this session. One of my areas of expertise is driving end-to-end digital transformations within organizations. So this session is very much focused on looking at driving digital transformation inside your organizations. While as I touch a little bit about your consumers or your customers externally, I don't go in this presentation into details about customer experience or digital marketing as such. But hopefully I'm able to share with you a lot more on how you can drive digital transformation at scale, specifically if you are part of organizations which are globally spread or on teams which are globally spread. Um, let me just talk through what we will be covering today, right? But the way I want to do this, and hopefully this works on Zoom. What are the main challenges and barriers that you are facing when driving digital transformation at scale? So I'll take a pause and say, just think about the question. I would love to get initially your thoughts before I go into the content of the session. So hopefully I can build that into our conversation today. So if you can use the chat functionality in Zoom to just type in your thoughts, then that would be really helpful for me. Um, and I'll give you all a second to do that. I know the audience is muted, so if you can use the chat facility on Zoom to do that, that will really help. I'm going to give it a second more. All right. I'll keep an eye on the chat. But let me just share some of the challenges and barriers which I faced when I was driving digital transformations in the organizations I worked in. And they were a lot about how do I have the right digital essentials, the right setup to drive digital transformation. There were too many technology choices. What do I do about them? And then how do I really drive the capability in the organization to deliver digital transformation? I'm today going to talk about all of those areas. And hopefully, as we go along, please feel free to use the chat functionality to drop your questions, which I can address at the end of this session. So as I said, we're going to talk today about digital essentials, what should be in place or what should be already thought through for you to be driving digital transformation at scale. What are the core things which you need to set up for digital transformation at scale? Technology choices, there are many. And I know a lot of you all are probably very well versed in one or the other particular technology. So choices, and at an organization level, how do you look at those choices? Digital capability and culture in your organizations and deploying at scale. And these topics are obviously looking at how do you do this in an organization, but you can also attribute them to your specific teams or areas of influence. Let's talk about digital essentials. And this is a theme which will continuously show up, and that's data. A lot of people, when they talk about digital, almost talk about data synonymously. And data, managing your data is a key essential before you embark on a digital transformation at scale. Now, does that mean you have to fix every data management problem you have in your organization? Absolutely not. It doesn't mean you have to fix every underlying problem because, hey, if you would be doing that, then you would be in that world for a very long time and missing on the opportunities that digital and technology choices present. So managing your data is about getting smart about how you look at your business outcomes and values, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next topic. And thinking about what data gets you the most benefit or value, and how do you focus your organization in organizing that part of the data. The other thing about data is not to forget that data is not all about the numbers and the metrics. It is also some of your unstructured data, documents, capturing the experience in knowledge systems, etc. And that data, also from a digital perspective, is quite key because at the end of the day, you're trying to transform your operating models, you're trying to transform how you make decisions. And it's just not about the sort of structured data in your organization. It's about all of it. It's about all of your organizational knowledge and expertise. So before you embark on this journey, it is important to think about what is the current state of your data. Think about where you want to focus on it, not everything, but what is really important for you to drive this journey, and to think about it in its holistic component and not individually as charts and numbers and metrics. The next essential is legacy systems, and sometimes enterprise systems. They might not be legacy, they might be managing your day to day business activities. That is what most of your organization is used to using. That is what a lot of work is done on. So they are quite important, and how they interact with your digital future is equally important. If they are locked up in non-accessible locations globally, or they are very locally focused, then that can cause a problem when you're looking at seamless transformation at scale. And I'm not an expert on cloud computing, so I'm not going to try and say, okay, this is what you should do for cloud. Um, but um, but having a cloud-based solution, whatever works for you, and there are many different ways of doing this, is important to be part of your digital essentials toolkit. And it doesn't have to it has to think about the countries you're operating in. It has to think about the legislations or regulations you're operating with, but at the same time it needs to be a critical part of your digital transformation journey. And bringing those two together, and not focusing the your cloud conversation only on new things, but also on your legacy systems, is quite important, because they do drive your workflows, they do drive some of your core activities. And when you talk about digital transformation at scale specifically, all of them are part of the conversation and not excluded from that conversation. The final point I would like to make on the digital essentials is connectivity and collaboration. A lot of culture, ways of working comes by being creating a collaborative environment, creating an inclusive environment. And specifically, if you are a globally dispersed organization, it's important for you to think about how connected you are to each of your offices and how you can collaborate better. This is also important if you are a customer facing organization, and how are you actually providing services to the organizations. And thinking about how you connect and collaborate with your customers is also quite key to the digital essential toolkit as such. Now, I'm not saying again on all of these, it's not about saying, hey, these are the essentials, so we will remain in these basics forever. It's about really looking at what out of these areas is important for you to drive your digital transformation. But nevertheless, for most organizations, they one or more of these will be a key factor. And I would say you wouldn't be driving a digital transformation at scale if you're not thinking about your data to start with. So I'm gonna move on to the next part of the conversation. Um, and that's really about setting up for a digital transformation at scale. If there are any questions or any thoughts, please do feel free to put them on the chat. I understand the session is being streamed live and you might be watching this live. Unfortunately, I don't have access to questions which are on the live streams right now, but I will obviously go through them post the session. So setting up for digital transformation at scale. Let me start by saying that it's a journey, and every organization will be at different parts in this journey. You yourself as an individual would be at a different point in this journey in terms of your understanding of digital transformation. And I'm pretty sure there are some people on the live sessions or on Zoom thinking, well, that's not what I think digital transformation means, and what is Shubhi really talking about? And that's the point. Everybody's got a different view on what digital transformation means personally at an individual level, but also at an organizational level. So, what I can share is my thoughts and opinions here, but obviously, this is not a comprehensive list of everything you might be thinking about or working through. As I said there on the top, it's about shifting your mindset. It's about sort of starting to get on that journey and where it takes you. It's not so much about absolutes. So I have some examples here on what that might look like, and let me just talk about them, each one of them. So business cases, and a lot of organizations spend a lot of time creating business cases and figuring out what is the net present value of digital investment, of thinking about where they should put their capital resources in a very careful way. And my view here is that the organizations need to move away from thinking specific business cases, but more wider business outcomes. And if you want to drive digital transformation at scale, if you're still talking about individual projects and programs and business cases, then you're not looking at it holistically enough in terms of what your business wants to actually drive. What are your strategic goals and what are your strategic objectives? I'm doing another session later this week on competitive advantage, and I do go a lot more into business outcomes and how do we identify them in that particular session. But for now, I would leave you with the thought that you need to orient and think about outcomes overall, and they are not about the next big digital program. They are about a holistic change in your organization. And they have to be aligned with the purpose of your organization and the vision of your organization. And if they are anything other than that, then you're not really driving towards digital, would be my assertion. But obviously, there are nuances from business cases to business outcomes. And as I said, it's a journey. Um, Automating workflows. A lot of organizations talk about automating their workflows as being digital. But where digital's true power comes in is really about changing your operating model for a different competitive advantage or different value your organization can deliver. So while as automating workflows is important, and I'm not suggesting in any of these cases that you don't need to do something, you really need to start thinking and challenging your operating model and thinking about how technology and how digital can actually change your operating model. You may not need to do things the way you have done them in the past if you are applying something like AI or data analytics or RPA. So, so thinking about that flow of where you are, also it's important to keep in mind that when I say change your operating model, it doesn't mean every part of your organization in every area. It has to again go back to the business outcomes you're trying to achieve and prioritizing on where you are happy with an automated workflow and where you really think technology can make a shift in your operating model and make you more future ready. The next one I want to talk about is digital strategy in silos to an integrated digital strategy. One of the biggest barriers of driving transformation at scale is that the strategy sometimes across your organization is seen as a digital strategy or a technology strategy. And it is in silos. It is about business area X. It may be an HR digital strategy. It may be another business marketing digital strategy. And what it isn't is your organization's integrated view, which integrates your technology, digital, and business outcomes together into one strategy. So again, I'll go back to my first point. Business outcomes are important, and hence they will drive your integrated digital strategy. Now, I'm not saying that writing different digital strategies in silos is something you shouldn't do and you should go for a big, huge integrated digital strategy. It depends on your organization, again, where you want to put value in. But do start moving yourself on the journey of not individually focusing on areas, but thinking about how those areas connect. Because a big value you can unlock through digital is that integration across your organization, whether it's across geographies, whether it's across business areas. Different organizations always have different types of silos. And whatever your silo, you can challenge that and say whether you can create a more integrated backbone for your organization using digital. Um, the next one I have there is quick wins to gaining momentum. And you will hear in the context of digital pockets of successes. And on this one, I'll take a different tone because in this, I feel both are important. You do need quick wins. You do need quick wins to influence sometimes your management board, sometimes your customers, that you are ready for a digital transformation at scale. What you shouldn't do, however, is always remain in the quick win category and not get into the gaining momentum part of the journey. So you can you when you start having quick wins is really important, but as you start gaining momentum, and if you think everything is a quick win, and what I mean by quick win is small sharp pieces of work which show the value of digital. So just to and maybe just to share what I have in mind when I say quick wins. So things which you can do in a few months, you can show the value, you can show the benefit. That's really great to start with if you're at the beginning of your journey, but it's not that great if you're trying to gain momentum and getting to scale. So you really have to start thinking whether multiple quick wins is your operating model here, or whether you should be really looking at gaining momentum, i.e. creating that integrated view and creating those bigger digital programs which are aligned to the business outcomes and to what you want to change in your operating model. A lot of um, one of my observation is that when we talk about customers, specifically sometimes internal customers or customers within the organization, as opposed to external customers, there is a view in organizations to have expert only views. So who is the best SME for this particular area? Who is the process champion? Who is the advisor? Or who is the best expert we can find on a particular area we are trying to change or transform? And I think that is really important for you to understand the area and what outcomes you're trying to drive in that area. But as you're setting up your digital transformation, that has to translate into what your customer journeys are. So it is actually about the frontline workforce in many cases, or the people who are going to be impacted by that digital transformation. So the expert view is good, but you really do need to start moving into understanding who your end consumers are and who your end customers are, and bringing them into the journey with you, along with you, getting their views, and if possible, working with them collaboratively to shape that journey. So, digital transformation is a lot about working closely with your end consumers and customers and partnering with them. So, if you are a digital team, or if you are a team which is looking at digital transformation, make sure that when you're getting the people in the conversation, they're not just experts, they are actually people who would be impacted by what you are doing on a day-to-day basis. And the final program I have is POCs, proof of concepts. And it's similar to my point on quick wins, but proof of concepts are one step behind quick wins. They are more about proving that something will create value for the organization. So again, a really good thing to do at the start of your journey, but always know how you're going to actually convert them into wider programs and into connected, integrated programs which will deliver that transformation. All of the first, first part of these bullets, they're all things you should do. It's just when you're trying to set up for the transformation at scale, you need to be moving away from those and into what your bigger picture looks like. And the other part of the slide, fundamentally, points out to some of those aspects. Now, there are many more, and hopefully, if I get questions, I can address some others. But um, these six to me form some of the core fundamentals and are connected to each other, and hence I've chosen to emphasize on these. The next focus I want to go into is technology choices. And my observation is when I embark on some of these journeys, you get a lot of um, in external inputs within the organizations which talk about all of these technologies, and my assertion is at the end of the day, what you use for your business outcomes is really important. Not everything fits everything, and you don't need to be in all spaces. So, again, it boils down to what your business outcomes are and what you're trying to achieve as to what technology choices you select and where you use what. Um, some of these are very obvious for your industry areas, others might not be, and you have to just think through how much of it and how much you want to have expertise in one or the other within your organization. And I'll talk about capability in a minute, where I do suggest how you can actually have a whole ecosystem of going after different technology choices. But on this, I would assert to these three dots I have here, because this is a growing and evolving conversation. I was reading through some articles by on technology trends, and every time I read an article, there's something new which is added to the mix. Some of the terms I have used here are really very well understood, and they're pretty much not put down as trends now. They are more choices which you are making. But then there is more coming, and it continuously evolves and grows. So how do you make sure that your choice of your what you are going after is the right choice to make for your organization? And hence, I would strongly recommend that things which are more technology driven, you need to have a little bit of a look at them and say, are they really solving a business problem for me? Are they really adding a competitive advantage for me? Are they actually shifting the dial? Or are we doing this because this is what, from a technology perspective, we're hearing about and we're hearing other organizations do it? So we think we are probably missing out on something. And my assertion and personal view would be that you probably are not. You really need to just think down to what makes sense for your area individually or for your organization, as opposed to the amount of feed you get into about each of these areas. Um, if you're limited on investment, it also makes sense to focus in on one area as opposed to spread yourself too thin. Because again, going back to saying quick wins and gaining momentum, you can get quite ahead with one of the areas as opposed to trying to do a little bit of robotics and a little bit of IoT and a little bit of augmented reality. That type of, you have to think whether you have the investment, the resources, um, to actually drive technology at all of these technologies together. And I would say the bottleneck there is not necessarily sometimes the investment you might have or the eagerness of the organization to take up some of it. It's the capability. So the more you're trying to drive, the more you have to think about your people capability in a very broad sense, and um, and the more you have to build that at pace to drive this at scale. So my session would be, think about the ones which are important to you, keep an eye out and keep innovating on the ones which you feel might have something for you, but balance that out in a way that you can actually achieve outcomes, and you're not always at the start of the journey, but you're actually moving forward and managing digital transformation at scale. I'm just going to quickly check the chat and make sure there aren't any comments there. Cool. So the next part of my conversation is really about digital capability and culture. And I have got six things here, which are a mixture of capability and culture. So it's not only about people um, in this particular slide. So let me start from the top and where I've got new skills in the workforce. You definitely have your core digital skills, software engineers, architects, technical skills of different variety in your organization. A big focus is obviously on data scientists, and I will be surprised if nobody has in this group would say, well, why data scientists? Because that's a big theme and a conversation which is happening there in the environment, external environment. I want to pick product managers or sometimes corporate owners a little bit because these are individuals who on your digital journey determine the feature, the functionality of what you're driving in terms of digital and your digital products. And and while this is a concept which is more for technology organizations where they have product managers or owners or chief product owners, um, when you're externally selling a digital product, if you are in your internal organization setup, then you still do need to want to think about product managers and product owners. And this is where you need to have probably SMEs or people who understand your business outcomes and operating model lead and be part of those roles. This is a full-time activity. It's not something which an SME comes in and does a session with your digital team and leaves. It is a full-time accountability for making sure that what you are putting in terms of digital transformation is sustainable, addresses the real needs, and creates the value you think it will. So thinking about new skills, definitely think about not just the technical skill sets you need, so the designers, or the data scientists, or the software engineers, but also the ones which you need the functional expertise and the experience from. Um, Now, number two is not for everybody, but I would say if you have, if you can find some niche solution advantage for your organization, and you can partner up with startups, or if you are a startup who wants to partner up with organizations, that is one way of growing your digital capability. So it's not something which you are collaborating with a startup which allows them to move ahead in whatever niche solution they have, but you are trying to buy into that solution at an early stage. Now, I would say do this with caution, obviously, and do this with the thinking that you have to be very clear on what you're expecting to get out of it. So it's not about partnering with startups generically, it's about being very clear on what outcome you're trying to achieve through that partnership. Um, One of the things which I always found was there are a lot of third party partners who will say we have all the digital skills. And I found that actually they do have a lot of digital skills, but it's about the specific skills I need to complement the teams I have in. So, how do you look at your sourcing model and look at things which are about third party partners who bring a specific skill set, or look at the skills and say what are my gaps and what where can a third party partner actually help me, and where it might not be something for me. um, Depending on what your sourcing mix is or sourcing strategy is, I would say at this point, looking at your digital sourcing is an important part of the equation. So it's about what you have in the workforce, but what who you are partnering with. So the this side of the slide is all about creating the capability, either through partnering with organizations or sourcing right or developing the skills in your organization. The other side of the slide talks a little bit more about the culture aspects of it. And I will be surprised if nobody has heard of agile in this context, or flatter and empowered team structures in this context. And my assertion again here would be you need to really figure out what is the work practice which works for you. Um, and and focus on it and drive it across the organization. So this is not about the digital team being agile, this is about the organization being agile. And that is much more tougher to do in most circumstances than really changing the shape of your own immediate team or your area of influence. So thinking about what new work practices work for you in terms of how you work, how you collaborate, how you empower. Again, it alludes to the fact around your own operating model too, but at the same time, what can you bring in realistically? And my view would be that you need to look at your current capability and work practices and start small and move to a vision which is much larger, because this is one of the most difficult things to achieve, I would say, on this particular on this particular slide, and to drive, which is a change in the culture, the change in how your organization operates and works on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to structures, operating models, processes, etc. The next one I have there is innovation. I alluded to this in the previous slide as well. So while as it is important to have a technology side choice, clear technology choices, it's important to have a pipeline of ideas. And when I say pipeline of ideas, I just don't mean random ideas put into some sort of idea capture. What I mean is you need to also have with those ideas which you like a proof of value. Sometimes ideas look good on paper, but when you actually take them forward, you're not able to unlock the value which you might have from them. Sometimes due to technical challenges, capability challenges, readiness of the organization, there can be many things to it. So it's important to do a proof of value to prove to the organization that you can actually take the idea and convert it into a valuable program at some point. It's also good to have a time frame of these proof of values, so i.e. a long-term plan of what that might look like. But please don't hesitate to change that plan on a rolling basis, would be my view, because this is now about technology and innovating, using technology to shape ideas, and that changes on a weekly basis. So having a plan which says in 3 years time I will have this, I will move this idea forward, just does not work in the current environment. So how do you keep challenging that, and how do you keep moving that forward is really important. The final one there is location and office space, and does that really matter? Um, it's a conversation which happens a lot about whether your teams should be all together. And obviously, right now in the virtual world we're living in, um, I would say it's in my opinion, it's about can you bring the team together, form it together, and then virtually work through with them. It's difficult to always co-locate a team, and depending on your organization, of course, if you're a locally based organization, that is not a problem. But if you're a very globally spread organization, you wouldn't be able to get the right diverse talent if you emphasize co-location. Similarly, new office setups and creating a digital environment, that is really important. And having the tools, both, sort of from a collaboration perspective and for the team to feel difference is really important. But my suggestion would be think through what your team really requires and where the gaps are. And not take a blueprint from different organizations and say, hey, this is what I want as well. Because it gives you some momentum, but at the end of the day, if you are an organization which is in different locations, it will not give you it doesn't have the longevity which you are looking for. So balance it out. It is quite expensive to do, but in all cases, again, go back to thinking about your silos, what those silos are, and using a location and office space to break those silos more than actually just putting something in which would be good. Yeah. Let me see. Am I getting okay? All right. I'm just checking on time, just so that there's enough time. Um, I'm going to quickly move to my last bit. Here are a few more considerations. Just in the interest of time, I'm not going to go into details on this. Um, One I want to emphasize, a couple I want to emphasize are features versus minimum viable product. And I think it's a term which is used quite a lot. Different people think of minimum viable products in different ways. But at the end of the day, a minimum viable product is which is a product which can be used. It's not about designing one part of it which cannot be used end to end. So it has to be a product which is usable for the outcome you're looking for. And when you're deploying at scale, think through where you want to be on the journey of your minimum viable product to the additional features and functionalities you want to add in the product. Because it's really important when you're trying to do this at scale across geographies, big departments, organizations, multiple thousands of users, that you are balancing adding features to adding to your minimum viable to what might be your minimum viable product. The other area I would say, deploying at scale, work with your cybersecurity team to work out what the framework is which applies to deploying digital at scale. It's key, it's important, and it will slow down your deployment if you find issues later on. So just right from day one, they are your partners and they should be in the conversation. So those are the two I would like to highlight here. But I am getting a time babe, so I'm going to stop here and move into any questions you might have. Any questions? I'm just going to the overall view here. Just want to see who all are on the call, and hopefully that might help. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask me questions. As I said, I'm talking more about the leadership around digital transformation. So, um, anything on the content I have shared. Dr. Fatma, I see you are on the call as well. Is there anything specific you want to add to what I might have said, given your experience?
Well, thank you very much. It's been really great presentation. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. We really appreciate it. And it's an honor to have you today with us. We learned a lot. And I think you covered beautifully the part related to teamwork within the organization and other things as well that we all need to hear about. Uh, I would like to thank you. And maybe if you would like to share with us, how do you think AI society can make use of your experience as a technologist in the field? Thank you.
So I think I see myself as somebody who's driving digital transformation from all perspectives, and I wouldn't say I'm a deep technologist in one field compared to all of you who have way more experience than me when it comes to specific technologies. To me, my experience is more about how do you actually convert that technical experience and technology experience into driving digital in an organization, because it requires a lot more than 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 the technical aspects of the conversation, and specifically within organizations, as opposed to if you're in a in a consumer facing world comparatively. So I think that's where I can help, would be my view.
I think that is really great. Thank you very much. Uh, I wish to have the I wish that we can have some more of your experience here and you can share it with us, inshallah, later on. Thank you very much, dear.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, right? In that case, thank you for your time. If you are watching live, I will go through any questions which have come up live and try and reply to them. I'm happy to hear your thoughts on the conversation we had today, and other things you might want me to cover in any future session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much for your speech. Uh, I think there are no more questions. So I think we can wind up the session here. Our next session will be at 2 o'clock. Thank you so much, madam.
Thank you.